Police are set to receive new powers to restrict repeated pro-Palestine protests after Sunday's demonstration in Trafalgar Square, which saw nearly 500 arrests. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood says large, repeated protests can leave communities feeling unsafe, and tougher rules will allow police to limit locations, numbers and times for demonstrations. So joining us now is the editor-at-large of the Tribune, Karl Hansen. Karl, is this reasonable, considering the fact that we've had week after week after week after week of pro-Palestine protests?
I don't think it is reasonable. I mean, the right to protest is a foundation of our democracy, and when a government starts to take away those rights, I think that's something that should worry us all. And I'm sure that maybe yourself and many of your viewers might disagree with me on the Palestine protests, but this law isn't only going to apply to those protests, it's going to remove the right for you, yourself and all of your viewers to protest about the things that they care about too. And yeah, it's a worrying situation.
But these protests, and let's consider the taxpayer, they cost us a fortune. And it's I can't even list them. It's been over the last year and a half or so that there's been one pretty much every weekend, and at least maybe 2 or 3 elsewhere as well. And it's costing us, in terms of policing, a fortune. Totally unfair to the taxpayer, and also totally unfair to the Jewish community, who admit that who've already said they feel petrified by all of these protests, because it then limits their right to actually go about their business. What about their rights?
Well, on the point about the cost, I would say that's the price of living in a democracy. And if the government wants to end the Palestine protests, then the simplest way to do that would be to do what the majority of public opinion is demanding and stop arming and supporting Israel. It's as simple as that. It's the government that's choosing to continue to provide that support and causing the protests and the bill for the policing.
What makes you think that that's what the majority of the British public want? I mean, that might be your point of view. Just because people are prepared to go out and protest doesn't necessarily mean they represent the majority. Often there is a silent majority. And the other consideration is, if there's a community who are unable to go about their business every week, what about their freedoms? Surely you'd be fighting for their freedoms.
Well, it's not my opinion. It's fact. Opinion poll after opinion poll after opinion poll shows the majorities.
Which one, sorry? Specifically, it's fair enough. You said it's fact. Which opinion poll shows that the majority of people are on the side of pro-Palestine in this country?
YouGov, Ipsos Mori, Survation.
What are the numbers? I'm going to have a look.
Anyone watching at home can do a quick Google and see that.
You might be. What specifically? Because I'm looking now. Savanta, and you're saying that supporting pro-Palestine protest.
No, I'm saying that the majority of public opinion opposes the war in Gaza, wants Britain to stop arming Israel and take measures to hold it to account. So the majority of public opinion is in support of the causes that protesters are protesting about.
I don't. I think you've put lots of things in there, because some of the things I'd support, some of the things I wouldn't support. And I think if you ask each one of those separate bits to different people or to the majority, I don't think you'd get all of them saying yes to everything. I'm not quite sure of that. But
we're living in a time of what feels like pretty significant social change, and it makes us question things that we've even taken for granted for decades. And one of those at the moment that people are wondering about is actually money. Is the money in your bank account safe? Should you be investing elsewhere? Are we looking at a potential global crash? What will it mean for your savings? Is there a way that you could be using your money that might be outside of government control even? Well, TallyMoney is potentially one solution. So I'm delighted to say that I'm joined today by the CEO and founder of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. What is TallyMoney?
Well, at TallyMoney, you basically get gold you can spend. So we give people an individual account in their name, everyday account. They get a sort code, an account number. They use that account just like they would pounds from their bank, but it's milligrams of gold that we brand as Tally.
Okay. Why would you do that, though? What is the benefit to the customer instead of just having a normal pound sterling account?
Gold's performance against the pound is above 11% per annum over the last 25 years on average. But we still need money in our daily lives, and we have savings. We know that it's good common sense and prudent to save up for things, not just living credit. You know, whether it's a holiday or a rainy day, your retirement planning, you need to have money in your life, basically, that you can rely on, that's dependable, that nobody meddles with, that nobody can weaponise against you, which is another element of government control when it's the government currency, which we could talk about another time. And it should be pretty simple and straightforward, and that's what we deliver at Tally. And really, we just want people to feel safe and happy with their money. There was a time when the bigger your bank balance, the more confident you felt. Now it's like, I need to do something with it. I can't leave it there. In Tally, you can.
Okay, brilliant. Cameron Parry from TallyMoney, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bev.
One thing I do know is that what about the right of the people to walk the streets freely, the right of Jewish people? Because whilst these protests are going ahead, we know that there are some elements which mean that Jewish people are afraid. And I'm sick and tired of people saying, oh, but some of my Jewish friends are on the protest. Maybe, but the majority of Jewish people, and I can say that for sure, are not prepared to go through the streets when these protests are happening, because you don't know which element of the pro-Palestine protests you will encounter. And as we well know, there have been some anti-Semitic elements of that protest as well. So what about the rights of Jewish people to, if every week maybe it's their street, they can't go down it because there's a protest?
Well, it's nonsense to say people can't go down because the protests are
no, they
peaceful,
won't go down.
Not anti-Semitic. I mean, people might feel like that, but it's completely irrational.
Have you not seen?
You can't take away people's rights.
You've just done. Well, that's what you'd be doing if you continuously allowed repeated protests on the streets, which mean that people who feel that their rights have been taken away to go around the streets, because in those protests we've seen police who have told Jewish people don't go around that way or don't be visibly Jewish. I wouldn't advise you to do that, and then moving the Jewish people away because they're concerned for their safety. So whilst I hear you, yes, it's a fundamental right that people should be able to protest, what about the rights of people like the Jewish people to go about their business on a daily basis and being able to go where those protests are?
But again, it's just a complete nonsense. There are large Jewish blocks on every one of those marches. The marches are not anti-Semitic. Jewish people are safe to join them, to walk around them, do whatever they like. And if people have an irrational fear that these marches are somehow a danger, the problem is that they've got a misinformed, irrational belief that's making them scared. And, you know, that's unfortunate, but that is not a reason to take away fundamental political rights from the entire population. And one more point I would like to make. It's
not the entire population, though, is it? It's a population that are feeling intimidated by weekly protests against the war in Gaza, but also those protests have some very anti-Semitic elements in it. And I'm not going to allow you to get away with saying that's not true. There were. It's not nonsense. We've seen from the river to the sea, we've seen people holding ISIS placards, we've seen people holding anti-Jewish messages, we've seen people, supporting all sorts of things that are anti-Jewish at these protests, which are anti-Semitic. So, of course, Jewish people will be afraid to go out. They can't be sure that they're going to come to find the nice element of the protest. So how can it be allowed to carry on every single week?
Well, I just have to say that your characterization of the protests is completely wrong. You should go out and see them yourself, and I think that will correct your view. And
I have.
One point I would like to make is that GBNews, and I'm sure many of your viewers would have supported the recent anti-immigration protests that we saw in London. Personally, I don't like those protests. I wouldn't join them. But I think that you have the right to hold them and to go on them, even though I'm sure some people feel intimidated by those protests. Like, this is part and parcel of living in a democracy. And if you're taking away these basic political rights from people who want to march for Palestine, then you're taking them away from the entire population to protest about the things that are important to them as well. This isn't just about pro-Palestine. This is about fundamental political freedoms for all of us, and that's why everybody should be worried.
Well, I would agree that people should have a right to protest, but there is a limit and there is within reason. And at that point where you are where it means that other people are afraid to walk the streets in that protest, then we have to draw the line over repeated every day or every weekend protests, which also costs the taxpayer a fortune. Karl Hansen, thank you very much. He's the editor-at-large of the Tribune. Thank you.